Good day. My name is Fedor Milik. I am a clinical psychologist. I am engaged in personal psychological consulting. My specialization is psychosomatics. My field of interest is the assessment of personal risks of psychosomatic pathology development. Now I will tell you about the virtual health scanner test, which is used for the initial evaluation of the psychosomatic process. Based on this test, I conduct a psychosomatic GREEN consultation. The neuropsychological test, virtual health scanner, allows you to determine deviations in perception, processing, analysis, and speed of information processing from the evolutionary norm. Now I show you how the graphs of brain functions look like in the program. The scanner evaluates the main cognitive functions: perception, imagination, memory, image application, and dominant function. Normally, the graphs should be smooth and synchronous, and their values should be in the range from -25 to 5 conventional units. If the graphs go beyond these limits, this is bad, because a person with such graphs is prone to unmotivated emotional breakdowns. If the graphs go beyond *-50 units, this is an indication of neurotic reactions in the person being tested. At the consultation, I will tell you in detail about these parameters in connection with your psychosomatic condition. If a person is in an active psychosomatic state, he usually takes a passive position in life. He expects something from someone, but does nothing for himself. The scanner evaluates personal parameters: action, information. Now you see a graph on the screen, where you can see that in the one being tested, information prevails over action. Normally the action and information indicators should be of the same length, approximately equal to each other. In the client's case, she is a theorist. She carefully considers various theories about life, work, relationships, but she has a fear of action on her face. It is very hard for her to get out of her comfort zone if even in that zone it is very bad. This position supports and forms psychosomatic illnesses. The worse the psychosomatic lesion, the worse the communication skills of the client, the less desire he has to communicate with people. Now on the screen, you see a graph showing the parameters of the test person's communication skills. Normally the indicators of all abilities should be about the same length. Here we see a clear deficiency in the learning ability parameter. The ability to teach allows you to clearly and intelligibly convey your thoughts, and pass the information on to others. This person cannot do this. Because of this, the subject is unable to establish a personal life. Her relationships in the family will be one-sided, the needs of the spouse will be met, and the woman will be silent about her desires. In business, she will not be able to demonstrate a more effective scheme of work to her colleagues, even if she is thoroughly familiar with it. All this creates stress, and stress is the base of psychosomatics. The next parameter that determines the health scanner is the psycho-emotional background of life. According to the classification proposed by Professor Izzard, there are fundamental and derivative emotions. The fundamental ones include 1. Love, interest, excitement; 2. Joy; 3. Surprise; 4. Grief, suffering; 5. Anger; 6. Sadness; 7. Contempt; 8. Fear; 9. Shame; 10. Guilt. The others are derivatives. On the screen, you see a graph of the manifestation of the fundamental emotions. These are the emotions that the test taker most often experiences when confronted with daily problems and various life situations. These are the emotions that are activated subconsciously, as a reaction to psycho-emotional stress. For example, the subject is often sad. There is little joy in a woman's life. As a professional, I can immediately see that the experience of negative emotions prevails. And these are the ones that form the psychosomatic damage. Character traits constitute those essential properties of a person which determine one or another way of behaving and even living. The test assesses a person's character. Now on the screen, I show you what it looks like. Aggressiveness, apathy, arrogance. Lots of parameters, over 60 to be exact. The predominance of the blue indicator over the red indicates a quality of character, due to which the test taker has social success and good health, and vice versa. For example, arrogance. The color test indicates that from time to time the test taker shows arrogance in his interactions with people. This will give negativity to him from those people. Negativity will give stress, stress will give psychosomatic. In other words, I see that this client is creating the conditions for psychosomatic illnesses by her behavior. And her arrogance will be pronounced in a stressful situation. The key assessment parameter is the pathological emotional system. The set of leading negative character traits is called the pathological emotional system. On the graph, you see the rating of negative character traits by the decreasing value of the red indicator. In the case of a negative life situation, a person will unconsciously construct a scenario of his behavior under the influence of these character traits. For example, respect for others. The test indicates that a person has a problem with respect for others. In a stressful situation, disrespect for people will activate, inadequate personal behavior will manifest, the person will inadequately assess life situations, which will lead to stress and prolonged experience of negative emotions and as a consequence to the development of psychosomatics. So how does psychosomatic illness develop? Now you have in front of you a model of the development of psychosomatic disease. All of the psychological parameters that I described above are used to analyze the first 3 stages of this model. You can read more about this model on my website in the FAQ section. Pay attention to it, because almost 80% of diseases known to medicine are psychosomatic, and unfortunately, psychosomatic diseases are not treated with pills and injections. Under prolonged exposure to negative emotions, the natural protection of the human body weakens, and a pathological functional system is formed in the body. The pathological functional system is the basis and trigger mechanism in the development of all human diseases. Now on the screen in the table, general level, pathological functional system, you see a list of organs of the body, which under the influence of destructive character traits, pathological emotional system and the emotions generated by them, have united into a pathological functional system and cause medical problems of the tested person. A pathological functional system affects one of the functional systems of the human body. In total in a human body, there are 13 functional systems. Human complaints come precisely from the affected functional system, but they are caused by the action of the pathological functional system. Therefore, correcting a person's direct complaints will provide only temporary relief. This is probably what is happening to you now, too, when you take medications tailored to your complaints. By doing so, you are affecting the consequence, while the cause, the pathological functional system, is only increasing. Moreover, such treatment will create an excessive toxic load on your body, thus shortening your life expectancy, seriously worsening its quality. Hence, it follows that psychosomatic conditions are not treated with pills. Here we have to work with the pathological functional system and pathological emotional system of the person. My client's pathological functional system is the pituitary gland and the spinal cord, but her physical problems will come from the functional system that supports optimal sleep patterns. The client has a long-standing sleeping problem, she doesn't sleep well, and the treatment has no effect only because the problem is pathological functional system. And since the doctors have no data from a medical psychologist about somatization, they treat her sleeping problems, but the problem is really in the pituitary and spinal cord, and if this is not taken into account, the client will never start to sleep normally. The test analyzes each organ of the body and reveals psychosomatic lesions in the organs of the body. Now we will move, for example, to the liver and see what is there. Each rectangle is a psychosomatic process triggered by destructive emotions, feelings, and personality traits. Ideally, if all of the rectangles on the psychosomatic process chart are green. Alarming signal. Red rectangles, especially if the value of the pathological signal is more than 7 conventional units. This is already an indication of psychosomatic disease, and in this case, you need additional consultation. Psychosomatic yellow. In this case, there are psychosomatic processes that require attention. This is a yellow indication. The main process is functional changes in the liver. As long as these processes are compensated, the body controls these processes, but if the level of stress exceeds the permissible individual threshold, the person will see manifestations of medical symptoms. How to understand that a body organ is a target organ? The psychological pattern of psychosomatic disease formation in this organ is active. For the liver, for example, the following psychological parameters are indicators of model activity: fear of poverty, fear of criticism, anger, resentment, inability to plan, respect for others, sadness. Now we will go through the tabs of the program and see what these psychological parameters are. So, fear of poverty, blue bar 20, red 14 conditional units. This psychological indicator is not a trigger for activation of the psychosomatic liver model. Fear of criticism, blue bar 24, red 14 conditional units. This psychological indicator is also not a trigger for activation of the psychosomatic model for the liver. Resentment, blue bar 32, red 22 conditional units. This psychological indicator is also not a trigger for activation of the psychosomatic model for the liver. Inability to plan is the problem in this case. Why? Because the blue bar is 42, the red 113 conditional units. What does this mean? It means that a person is losing the ability to supply global strategic goals, and this leads to inefficient use of available resources. A person can set himself unnecessary tasks and spend time and energy on their solution and not get any result. Naturally, vital tasks will not be solved. This psychological indicator is the trigger for activation of the psychosomatic model on the liver. Unfortunately, there is already one prerequisite to consider this model active. The next parameter is respect for other people, blue bar 38, red 72 conditional units, and this psychological indicator is the trigger for activation of the psychosomatic model on the liver. Now let's look at anger, blue bar 30, 22, red 38, 44 conditional units, and this psychological indicator is the trigger for activation of the psychosomatic model on the liver. And the last parameter is sadness, blue bar 28.25, red 38.02 conditional units. This psychological indicator is also the trigger for the activation of the psychosomatic model for the liver. If at least one indicator from both columns of the table is unbalanced, the psychological model of psychosomatic processes formation in the brain is active. The more unbalanced indicators, the more active the model is. Obviously, in this client, the liver is the target organ and the model is active. Each organ has its psychosomatic model. That's what we'll talk about in the consultation. Now it is necessary to understand whether there is somatization, whether there is a physical lesion of the organ. The physical lesion of the organ begins at stage 4 of the model of the development of psychosomatic disease. Stage 4 formation of functional changes. During stress, a lot of blood flows to the vital organs, while less important organs receive less blood, nutrients, and oxygen. Also, more nerve impulses rush to the important organs. Against the background of changes in blood circulation, hormonal and nervous regulation, depending on the importance of the organ and the proportion of its participation in stressful situations, its function slows down or speeds up. In important organs, regeneration mechanisms are intensified, young cells are actively produced and damaged areas are repaired. In less important organs there is a decrease in the reserve stocks of nutrients and a slowing down of the rate of repair processes. Psychomorphological processes in the organ are the first indicator indicating whether the medical component of the model has been activated or not. If the model is active, then the person is at the stage of becoming sick of the organ. How do you find out? Very easy. There is a tab called Morphological Processes. You can see it now. Must be green. The morphological structure of the body, functioning of organs and systems are normal or well compensated. Here crimson. The rate of blood flow is decreased. There are vasoconstriction and a decrease in the number of functioning vessels. Blood flow is depleted. The rate of metabolic processes in organs and tissues is reduced. We can see that the morphology of the liver is not okay. There is an activation of the medical part of the model and there is already a real lesion of the organ. And that's how the medical psychologist analyzes the human body for psychosomatic pathology, organ by organ. The scanner will not show me organic changes. For that, I need the sensitive imago test. Besides, the test shows the influence of psychosomatics on the rate of aging of the body. Usually, people with psychosomatic illnesses also age faster. It concerns both aging of body organs, aging of the skin, weakening of brain functions. You have heard. He seems to be 35, but he already thinks and lives like an old man. About this series. The green marker reflects the calendar age, the red one, the biological one. Normally, the red marker should be shorter than the green marker. If the red marker is slightly longer than the green marker, it means that the biological age is ahead of the calendar age, the person is already aging early. If the red marker is significantly longer than the green marker, 40% or more, aging is occurring too quickly. It is scientifically proven that the development of cancer diseases is promoted by strong emotional upheavals, which lead to a disruption of the body's vital functions and the development of cancer pathology. The virtual scanner identifies organs with an increased rate of young cells, which may indirectly indicate the risk of developing oncopathology. These organs have a blue marker in the psychomorphology section. The client, unfortunately, has such organs. They are the esophagus, uterus and appendages. I want to say at once that based on one test this is not a diagnosis. At least I will need 4 or 5 tests at intervals of 10 days to assess the dynamics, and if the dynamics will appear then I will recommend an oncologist. I have fellow doctors who I work with and who knows what to do in this case. In this client's case, 2 more consultations will be needed, psychosomatic yellow and psychosomatic red, and she will most likely need medical help as well because the psychosomatic process has been confirmed.